Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. This is Lori Smith on Blog Talk Radio, and it is Friday morning, 7 o'clock here in the morning, Calgary, Alberta. What is it? June. Oh, I'm sorry, it's not Friday. It's Wednesday, June 29th. Thanks for being here, everybody. I appreciate you all waiting, and I had a bit of trouble getting into my switchboard, and so it was all full, so I had to kind of redial and try to get in here. So thanks for hanging out, and I appreciate everybody who's tuning into the shows. I want to continue looking at the positive affirmations page from Robert Burney, and we're about halfway through there, and it's some good information, and I hope everybody's getting something out of it. I know I do every time I look at this type of information. It's very helpful for me too, and so we'll just pick up where we left off yesterday. And I'm not a counselor, I'm not a therapist, I'm just a private citizen paying to do my own blog talk shows, and I just wanted to be one more voice speaking out against abuse, and one more voice for other survivors to know that they're not alone, and that to keep reaching out, to keep looking for that help where they can. And so I appreciate everybody who's taking the time to listen to my shows. I have a lot of shows, and I know it's hard to keep up with all the shows. There's so many shows on Blog Talk Radio that I want to be able to keep up with, and I just haven't had the time. But there's some great stuff on here on Blog Talk Radio as well. Bill Murray, he has a great show, and I missed his show last night. I really wanted to be there. Bill Murray is he's a survivor, and he's like me. He's out here trying to help other survivors and trying to raise awareness and promote education regarding child abuse, and just provide help and resources for survivors. So if you type into the search engine here on Blog Talk Radio, Bill Murray, Bill, and then Murray. He does a show called Community Matters and some other shows under SCAN, Stop Child Abuse Now. And so they have a website, the NAASCA, the National Association for Adult Survivors of Child Abuse. And that's NAASCA.org, I believe. And it's a great website. It's full of, there's links and references and information there for survivors of abuse, adult survivors, and it's good information. So there's lots of good stuff here on Blog Talk Radio, and so I appreciate everybody who's taking the time to listen to my shows. And so we're going to get right into this, and I just ask that everybody listen at their own discretion. I'm talking about abuse, and I don't sugarcoat it. I just tell it like it is. And one child abuse survivor to another, this show is really my healing journey, and it's quite graphic. I don't sugarcoat anything or minimize anything. So to make it sound better, or to make it more appropriate, you know what I mean? Because abuse is not appropriate, and it's not something that we can sugarcoat or minimize. I mean, abuse is abuse. It's what it is. Right? And so you have to listen at your own discretion to all of my shows. I'm really talking about the honest reality of what abuse is, right? So it may make some people uncomfortable. So you have to know what's good for you to listen to, and so make sure that you're okay to listen to my stuff. And if not, you have to turn the show off. It is your discretion, right? Young people under the age of 18, I just ask that you have permission to listen to my show. And, have an adult listen to the show with you. Hopefully you have somebody in your life who's a parent or caregiver, somebody who cares about what you're doing online, and have them listen to the show with you to make sure that it's age-appropriately okay for you to listen to my shows, right? So I appreciate that. So we'll get right into this. I did pop the chat room open here, and I have my good friend Gypsy Witch here with me. Hello, good morning, and good afternoon to you, or good evening now. So I'm going to pop the link back into the chat room here to Robert Burney's webpage. It's called Joy to Me and You, and that's www.joy2meu.com, and then /positiveaffirmations.htm, and that's the website that we're looking at. And my good friend Gypsy, which is always here, and from Australia. Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate it. Thanks for being here with me. She's my good friend, my sister. So we're going to pick up where we left off, looking at these positive affirmations. And yesterday we were just reading through a few of them. Have the right to ask for and expect something in life. Comparison of myself with another is meaningless. These are things that Robert Burney has written here. He has a bunch of positive affirmations, and on the left-hand side of the webpage there's quite a few more. So you can go through these. Check them out. And he says here, the Christ Goddess Spirit within me is creating miracles in my life here and now. I am a magnificent spiritual being having a joyous and exciting human adventure. These are things that we can tell ourselves, but we we eventually start to believe them. You know, I remember when I first started doing my positive affirmations about 4 years ago. Some of them I actually didn't really believe, but I just kept saying them anyway. You know, it took a while for me to actually believe these things and realize that it was true. You know, that I was a good person. I didn't deserve the abuse that I suffered, and that no child does, right? I mean, I can justify it by saying that. You know, that no one deserves to be abused like that. No child, no human being on this planet, no adult, no one, right? And so I started to actually realize that was the truth. You know, and it did change. It did definitely help me change the way that I feel about myself. So these positive affirmations, I think, are really important, and they did help me to get through, you know, that whole period of changing my view of myself. You know what I mean? I can't really help what other people think about me. That's what I was talking about yesterday. You know, it's the issue of, you know, it was whether how important it is for some people, for many people, what other people think of them. You know. And I mean, as far as my family goes, I mean, that's what I was really going on about yesterday and the day before was Monday and Tuesday, was that, you know, my family will never change the way they feel about me, and they will always feel that I need to play that role that I've played for so many years that my parents set up for me, and that's to play that role of the bad kid, you know, the kid who needs a quote unquote discipline, which was abuse, right, and who deserved everything I got, you know. And I think that I was told that as a child, you know, that I deserved those beatings. And I was actually, my siblings actually encouraged my parents to do this, you know, to treat me badly, right? So they would, because we were all trying to get each other in trouble. I mean, I did it too to my sister, mainly just my sister. But, you know, that's what happens a lot of times in families where there's abuse and dysfunction. It's not always that people will, you know, that the siblings will band together to protect each other. Quite often they will do exactly what the parents have set them up to, which is to fight and to have a lot of animosity towards each other. And many times they will not band together. There won't be any protection or any support. I've seen in other people's cases where there were more than one sibling, you know, more than one child in the home being abused. Sometimes those kids will actually come together and try to help each other. And you would think it would be the case that it would be that way always, but it's not always that way. And even today, my siblings don't like me, you know, and they have to love me because I mean I'm part of the family, and they all like to think that they love the family, except for my brother, who doesn't love anything or anybody or himself. But my sister does, so I'm sure she loves me, but she doesn't like me, you know what I mean? And she doesn't like what I do. I never have liked what she's done. We don't appreciate each other, and so we have a lot of animosity. We always have. She's 5 years older than me, and we've always been fighting and never really got along. We just were forced to try to get along in this life because it's all we had was each other, you know. But we don't necessarily never did band together to try to help each other and to try to make life better for each other. We've never done that. So as much as my sister's been helpful in my adult life a few times, doing a few things for me, which is great, I've tried to do the same for her in my adult life. But we still don't have that relationship, that close relationship where we would hug each other down and just hold each other and just say, you know what, you did not deserve that. You know, you were a good kid. You didn't deserve any of that. And and for me to be able to say the same thing to her, you know, she grew up in the same home I did, right? So, you know, I think it's just we won't be able to change the way everybody thinks about us. There's no way. But we need to change. We really ultimately just have to care about how we feel about ourselves. Because there will always be somebody in the world that will not like what we're doing, or there's always going to be some type of rejection, right? And people who've been abused, you know, especially children, like young children, have been neglected, rejected, you know, pushed away. They're always kind of looking for that, I think, in an adult. Either that, or they'll go the opposite, and they don't seek any of that, right? They wouldn't seek to be accepted, and so therefore keep themselves on the outside of society and keep themselves on the outside on the outside edge all the time, saying, I don't need that, I don't need you, I don't need the world, I don't need anyone. And they become like this lone ranger or something, you know, like, because I've done it, you know what I mean? Just saying, I don't need love, I don't need affection, I don't need care, which is really false, absolutely untrue. I needed all the help I could get. You know what I mean? But because I had been set up for rejection, I couldn't handle any more rejection. So, a lot of times people think, oh, I don't need that anyway. Who cares? But I mean, I have to realize that there will always be people that will reject me, and there will always be people that won't like what I'm doing or like me as a person for who I am. And I have to accept that. That's okay. You know what I mean? But I have to like me. That is what is the most important thing. That's the thing that really matters, is whether or not I like myself and I can live with myself and I feel that I'm at peace with myself. It's my relationship with myself that affects my relationship with the world, with everything else that I'm in my daily walk here on this planet in this flesh body, right? So, if I'm comfortable with myself, then it won't matter to me if other people are or anybody else on the planet wouldn't like what I'm doing or is rejecting me, because I have to be comfortable with myself. And I think that's a big part of these positive affirmations is really taking a look at and being good to ourselves and saying, no, you know what, I have the right to ask for and expect something in life. I am a good person. It's just whatever you want to say to yourself. I love myself. There's so many different positive affirmations. It's awesome. I mean, you could just go through lists and lists of them and pick the ones out that really mean something to you and make sense and start saying them on a regular basis, and then believe them because they're true. They're all true. So he says if we truly believe the positive affirmations, we would not have to say them. But he says when we most need to say them is when we least believe them, when we are feeling the worst. That's what Robert Burney says. And Robert Burney, he's very spiritual, as you can tell in his websites and information on his websites. He's got in his web pages. He's a spiritual teacher. He's a codependence therapist, a grief counselor. He's an author, and he's written a book called Codependence: The Dance of Wounded Souls, which someday I'd like to get a hold of a copy of his book. And he's got excerpts from his book on his webpage, and he's really spiritual. He's taking a look at the whole big picture, and I like what he has to say. Some of it doesn't really make sense to me, on a certain level, but some of it does, and some of it makes total sense, and I relate to a lot of it. So I like what he has to say. So he says we need to say them, when we least believe them, when we're having the most problems, when we're actually feeling down, and we're actually, because that's where I was 4 years ago when I was, still feeling so down, and was on my healing journey, just started my healing journey. I needed to actually, I realized I needed to learn to love myself, and that I needed to learn to accept myself, So I started doing these positive affirmations in the morning and throughout the day. And did I believe them? Not all of them. And it took me a while, and then I started to realize, hey, this is the truth. I am a good person. I didn't deserve that. I'm whatever I was going to say to myself. I love myself and these types of things. So when we least feel like saying them is actually when we actually need to say them, and that's when we're feeling our worst. Right? He says when we are feeling lousy, we do some positive affirmations. We are being a loving parent to the wounded children inside of us. And doing the affirmations helps us to align with spiritual truth so that we are not giving power to the disease monster within by buying into the shame and judgment. And, Gypsy Wish, thank you. Gypsy Wish, I think you're precious and beautiful too. That's awesome. And he says, so the next time, quote unquote, he's talking here, he says, the next time something does not go the way you wanted it to, or just when you are feeling low, ask yourself how old you are feeling. What you might find is that you are feeling like a bad little girl, a bad little boy, and that you must have done something wrong because it feels like you are being punished. So just because it feels like you are being punished does not mean that is the truth. So he says, feelings are real. They are emotional energy that is manifested in our body, but they are not necessarily fact. So he says, what we feel is our emotional truth, and it does not necessarily have anything to do with either facts or the emotional energy that is truth with a capital T, especially when we're reaching out of an age of our inner child. That's quite interesting. And I think, what he was talking about in some of his other web pages was that little person, that little inner child person that we were so long ago, is quite often trying to drive the bus, trying to make the decisions for us as an adult, like in this world, this wounded little person within us. We really can't let them make those decisions, right? Because they're not going to make the best decisions. They could be 5 years old, and they could be completely wounded, and they could be completely not trusting anybody, and they could be hiding in the corner and not wanting to come out. And of course, that's going to affect our decision-making process as an adult. So I until I saw that, I really didn't, I didn't think about that. That my little inner child is really responsible for a lot of the decisions that I've made in my lifetime as an adult. Because now I look back and I think, yeah, certainly, quitting jobs, leaving relationships. The minute I think I'm in trouble, I'm gone, And that's just from, growing up the way that I did, being very, very, either trying to get out of the house away from my mother by running, which she usually caught me, or just not coming home at all. So just not showing back up, right? And that's what a lot of abused children will do. And then, of course, now as an adult, I just don't show up. If I get in trouble at work, okay, I just quit. I just don't show up because that's my little child, 7-8-year-old child inside of me saying, "Uh-oh, there's going to be hell to pay. I'm not going in." And that's exactly what it is, And I realize that because I have gotten into trouble at work, quite a few times, which is sad, but it's true. Nobody's perfect. Everybody makes mistakes. And just the idea and the thought that somebody would be very angry with me, it's my mother all over again. You know what I mean? And not even my dad. My dad, I didn't care about my dad, and he was abusive towards me too. But it was my mother's rage that actually really did most of the damage. And that fear really that she put into me as a child, and just the disdain, and the rage, that was really very damaging to me. And so, if I do anything wrong or I think somebody's disapproving of what I'm doing or disapproving of me, my first response is, something's wrong. That's my 7. I say 8-year-old, but that's probably close. 6, 7, 8-year-old child, and they're making these decisions. It's like, okay, we quit. We're not going back. Okay, we're not going to go back because we're in trouble, and so we're going to have to not show back up. This type of stuff. Those are really bad decisions to make, And if you're letting an 8-year-old child run your life, man, that's the kind of decisions that are going to be made. It's like, but that could go for anything. You know what I mean? Like any decision that we make, we have to be sure it's not our wounded 8-year-old, child within us making those decisions based on how they were treated and how they were mistreated, right? So because they aren't going to be trusting people, they're not going to be open to new relationships. They're not going to be open to confrontation. Like there's always workplace confrontation. There always will be confrontation in relationships. All that doesn't mean it has to be abusive. It doesn't mean that it's going to be abusive. It doesn't mean that somebody's going to get hurt. In my mind, that's exactly what it means. And it still does today. And so that's an issue that I've had to really, work on. Because even as a teen, and a young person in my, late teens, early 20s, I was hanging around with a lot of people who were violent, you know what I mean? So it was always a possibility for violence to erupt, So even within my own family, I grew up that way. Then later on, I had other people slamming my head into walls, threatening to kill me and stuff, and that's just the type of people I was hanging around with, right? And so for me, confrontation is not a good thing, and it could very well lead to violence, and almost always does, in my mind. But that's because that's my little person inside of me that says that's exactly the way life is for me, and that's exactly the way life is. And so, I have a difficulty with confrontation. So I'm learning now, in my 40s, to finally to realize that it doesn't all end up with someone getting hurt. It doesn't always end up that way. And workplace confrontation, I'm starting to learn how to, without screaming at the boss and quitting and leaving, I'm learning how to deal with things and talk to people and to get my needs met, and to make sure, because they obviously want to get their needs met. And so I'm learning how to stand up for myself, which is great. And it's without running or without hiding or whatever, or screaming and getting mad and throwing things around, you know what I mean? So I'm kind of learning in my, as I'm working through my 40s, how to handle things a little differently. That's important. So he says, the part of you that tells you that you are not lovable, that you're not worthy, that you are not deserving, is the disease, and it's trying to maintain control, because that is all that it knows how to do. So it says, we are not better than, we are also not less than. And the messages that we are better than came from the same place that the messages of less than come from, the disease. It says, we are all children of God who deserve to be happy. And if you, he says here, Robert Brady says, if you are right now judging yourself for not being happy enough or healed enough, that is your disease talking. Tell it to F off. I like that. Tell it to F off. He says, it is not who you are. It is only a part of you. And we can stop giving power to that part of us. We can stop being the victim of ourselves, right? Self-sabotage, self-injury, right? And I think that's just very important for people, to realize that quite often, that critical inner parent voice is really shouldn't have any bearing on our lives at all. Like, we shouldn't be listening to that because it is garbage. And we really have to learn how to become that nurturing parent and learn how to become that voice of that loving voice within us that tells us, no, it's okay. We make mistakes, but we're going to learn from them. And it's okay when maybe we're not where somebody else would think we should be in life, and there maybe other people may be judging us, but I feel like I'm a success. And so that's why these positive affirmations are really quite good for people, I think. It says we need to let go of the illusion that we can control this life business. We cannot. We never could. It was an illusion, and we need to let go of the false beliefs that tell us that we are bad and shameful. And we cannot become whole as long as we believe that any part of us is bad or shameful. So that's very true, and that's what I'm working through right now. Is because I'm working towards healing and wholeness, right? So, I'm working through the parts that I feel, part of me still says, part of me still hangs on to that wounded inner child, and because she's still there, and I haven't quite figured out how to. I'm still working on that. You know what I mean? Trying to allow her, to see that life is good, and that I'm going to be there for her. So I'm still doing a whole lot of inner child work, right? So he says that includes the ego, that bloated out of balance dragon within. Thank God for our egos. They are what allowed us to survive. Thank God for codependence. Without it, we would not be alive. But now is the time to get things into balance, the time to bring ego self into alignment and balance with spiritual self. And that is the transformation which is known as the death of the ego. And he says, to quote the St. Francis prayer, it is through dying that we awaken to eternal life. It is not referring just to physical death, it is referring to the death of the ego, which allows us to awaken to the truth of eternal life. So the death of the ego is not an event, it is a process. And it is not an act of violence, it's an act of love, a process of learning to love. And we are bringing ego self into alignment with spiritual truth. We are reconnecting with our spiritual nature and spiritual purpose so that we can find some fulfillment and happiness in life. So he says the goal is progress, not perfection. And we are works in progress, in process, right? So he says, here's some more positive affirmations. My dreams come true. I live in an abundant universe. I radiate self-esteem, inner peace, love, well-being, health, and happiness. I create money in abundance through joy, aliveness, and self-love. So these are things that we can tell ourselves, The light within me is creating miracles in my body, mind, and relationships here and now. And I am whole and balanced within myself. I always have everything I need. I am enough. I think that one's a good one. I am enough, right? I'm going to have to be enough. Because if I'm not, then I'm always going to be feeling that I'm not enough, and that it's never going to be good. It's never going to work out. I hear people talk like this all the time. A whole lot of negative talk, and I grew up with people like that. And it has to be enough, and we have to be enough because we were ultimately stuck with ourselves. And so he's got a whole bunch of positive affirmations on the left-hand side of the page. If you go to the website, I am a capable person. Now these are really important to say. I am capable. I'm a capable person. I'm a competent person. These will help people that have low self-esteem, thinking that they're not competent, that they don't do anything right. So many children are told over and over again that they never do anything right. Parents love to tell their children that. You never do anything right. You never listen. You never do anything right. And, when it becomes a habit and the parents just say it all the time, and I think it becomes habitual for the parent to say it, even though the kid, that's not true at all. They say it anyway, probably to make the child feel bad, because generally that's what it is. When parents are doing that, they're trying to hurt their children. They would argue with me and say that's not true. It is very true. Otherwise, they wouldn't be saying it. They'd say, "Oh, child, I love you. You are enough. You're perfect," right? Or whatever they're going to say. You're a good kid, right? They would try to be encouraging positive stuff in a child's life. But when parents are always telling their children, "You never measure up. You're just bad. You're stupid. You're lazy. You're fat," all they're doing is hurting that child and making that child feel worthless, lesser than. So people end up with low self-esteem and end up with all kinds of issues, you know. And my mother used to love to tell me that while she was beating me. She'd be like, "You just never listen," and she'd be slapping me around, and you know, a lot of violence and a lot of punishing, you know, behaviors right towards me because she wanted to hurt me. You know what I mean? And her goal was to hurt me. So, and she did a great job. But I have to I have to realize that I'm capable, that I do listen, you know. And my mother was always, "You never listen." You know, I do listen, and I am a capable person, you know, and I can do it, right? I am a competent person, and so I had to, you know, just for me to be where I'm at today in this world, and actually not kill myself. Like I had to be able to believe that you know, that I can do it, and that I am not a bad person. My family told me stuff like this the whole time I was growing up. You know, you're just going to end up, especially when I hit teenage years and I started partying and doing a lot of drugs and stuff. And they were like, "You're just going to die on the streets. You're just going to die in the gutter. You're just going to die of a drug overdose." They would pummel me with these accusations, and I started to believe it. I was like, you know, I probably will. You know, you guys believe that, and I'm out here doing the drugs and laying in the street in the gutter. So okay, you're probably right. So then when I got off the drugs at age 21, I started to really resent what they had said, and I still do. And so, you know, I had to really work really hard to be where I'm at here today, to be able to say, "Hey, I'm competent. I can do this." So every time I go out and apply for one of these corporate jobs, I have to believe that. You know? Otherwise, there's no way I'm able to even be sitting in the same room as these corporate people. You know what I mean? Like, we have to really believe this stuff. We are capable. We are none of those things, those bad things that our parents or someone else told us. None of it. That was all false. It was all lies, and it was all untrue. And so we have to get a grip on this and realize that those things were lies. And the truth really is that we are, all of us, competent, capable, and good. And we all should love ourselves for who we are. And we have to learn how to accept ourselves. And we have to learn how to learn from our mistakes. You know what I mean? Because everybody makes mistakes. The whole idea of making a mistake is that we can learn how to do things better. You know, and not carry the guilt of making mistakes, but just to learn from them and move on. And that type of stuff, right? So there's no. We shouldn't be taking on these shameful judgment, you know, type feelings, right? So don't listen to that critical parent voice, right? You listen to the loving voice within you, right? Thanks, everybody, for being here. I appreciate it. I'll be back on tomorrow, and same time, same place, 7 o'clock a.m., just taking a bit of a break and sleeping in a little bit this week. And, you know, I'll be around if you need something. Leave a message for me. I'd love to, if I can get you any information or whatever. I have tons of information, so let me know. And, you know, otherwise, take good care of yourselves. You know, reach out and get some help, and never, ever, ever give up. That's my big message. That's why I'm doing these shows. Don't ever give up. You know, you just keep looking for that hope. You keep looking for that help and keep reaching out. And get help if you need it. There's no shame in that. The real shame lies with the people that don't and the abusers who caused us to be this way in the first place. You know, there's no shame in reaching out and getting help, whatever help it is, right? And even just talking to somebody that you consider to be a good friend. But make sure that you don't suffer on and allow yourself to be destroyed by this, by your past. It's just horrible. You know, we certainly didn't deserve it then, and we don't deserve it now. So let's, you know, we have to stick around for better days, and that's what I do. So you guys have a great day, and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.